Right, so over the last 3 episodes we've shown how we can now look at our tiled map and produce this console-based ability to look at the map. But of course the real dungeon is full of graphics, so these are just a few, and I'll just run the game as we've developed it so far in Monogame, just to remind you what we're looking at. Okay, so this bit is just the beginning, so I'm not over concerned about the appearance of this one. It's the dungeon itself. Okay, so what I wanted to go through on this episode was how do we actually create the graphics for not so much the outside part but the actual dungeon itself. So that's what we'll be looking at today. How do we actually draw this? So let me shut that off. We don't need that anymore. We don't need that. So we've got the a few of the dungeon walls here, which are the graphics that we downloaded from the Java version, which I did a few episodes ago, and this is the area that we want to draw on. So let me just increase the magnification on that, zoom in a bit, and we'll get that up. That should do it. So this particular layer, which is the base here, if I just get the attributes on that one, that's the layer boundary size. So this is 448 pixels across by 326 deep, and is the kind of the background of the dungeon. Cancel that, and then all the other things, if I just minus that down again, all these other sections here are the walls that we're drawing on it. Now, in order to draw the dungeon, we have to build it up in 3 or 4 layers. So this one is at the bottom layer, so we draw this one first. Then we have to draw the walls that are in the far distance. So as an example, we could pick, say, this one, and we can drag it in there, and this one, drag it in there. Now the exact positioning of these graphics is known, but I'm just kind of guessing at this stage for demonstration purposes. So the very furthest away, which will be in the center of this here, is dark. Let me just increase the magnification on there, so we don't see that far back, so it's just black. And we put these 2 side walls in to create the effect of an opening here. Now, whether the side walls are visible on that particular scene of the dungeon or not is irrelevant, because what we'll be doing is we'll then overlay the next layer and build up the dungeon. So these will then be obliterated by the images that are drawn on top of it. So again, if I just minus it down so I can grab the next layer. So for example, on the next layer we might have this one. Okay, I've put it in an approximate position, and we might have this one on the other side. Again, I've put it in an approximate position, and if we set this up properly, we should be able to get the layers or the images to match up fairly accurately. Just going to touch more. There we go. I won't spend too much time fiddling about this, but you can get the principle that we're trying to get them to meet up. So now, as you can see, this is, we've done layer 0 is right at the back. This layer 1 was these two that we put down here. These are layer 2. If I just bring that up, and we've now got quite a definitive depth to the dungeon. So we can continue now with the same principle. If I pick, I need to just narrow this down a bit so I can see what I'm doing. So we can do something similar with the next layer, which would be perhaps this one, and this one. Now these are in the wrong layer order because they are appearing behind the second layer. So if I correct that, what I do is I'll click on that one and see where it is. This is wall R3, which is down here somewhere. Okay, so what I've done, I've put it just under, so this one here is this one, and the one that we want to move is this one. So if I now move it up one more place, it then becomes goes into the correct position. So I'll just select a random one somewhere. So again, this can now be adjusted so that it fits pretty much perfectly. And of course the same principle can be done with these two. I won't spend time showing you that, but it's the same principle. We just move the layer up. So you get the idea now how we can start to draw the dungeon. And of course the larger walls operate in the same way. So if I put that there, and then I change the drawing order down here. Okay, so I've reset the position of that wall now. Let's just come in on it a bit more so we can see it. And we've now, just adjust that slightly. There we go. We've now got a solid wall going across the front of the dungeon. Now, so that's the third layer. There is a fourth one, which is if you had at the moment it appears that where we're standing disappears off to the left and to the right here, whereas we might of course be in a corridor with a solid wall. So that's this final set of tiles here. These will also probably need adjusting. Oh no, these ones are all right. We're in the right spot for them. And hopefully the same on this side. Yeah, there we go. So we've now got, instead of standing in front of a plain wall on the kind of fourth layer, we've now got the sides blocked here. So that gives you the principle of how we can build up the basic graphics of the dungeon to create the walls, by starting with the layers behind and then gradually building up. If I move those out the way, out the way, out the way, here. So we start at the back. This background layer is layer 0. Then we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4. I'm sure you get the idea. So that gives us our basic building blocks. So that means what we need to know, apart from how to obtain these graphics from the sprite sheet, which we've already gone into, is we also need some kind of text file that would hold the positions that we need to put these things in. So for example, if I take that one, which I've just moved, and look at its layer attributes, we need to know these positions. So obviously we don't want it at -1, it will be 0 and 11. So we'd need to know those positions when we're drawing them into the dungeon. On a similar way, we've got all the items that are available in the dungeon as well, and they have to be plotted onto the wall. So if I just magnify this one. So again, what I've had to do is to go through all the hundreds of items that are available. These are just a few. And then try and draw them at their different layers, and then make a note of the coordinates of each of these items. In the end, what I did on this one, because there's so many, is that there were calculations that could be done. For example, this wall ring in the middle here, if you think about it, it's in the center of the dungeon. So if we knew the width of the wall ring and the width of the dungeon, we could mathematically calculate the exact center position. Also, if we could determine where a kind of a center point was on each wall, we could do the same with the vertical position of the wall ring. So once I'd done that, I then wrote a little routine that would pretty much fill in the missing data for that. So same principle here, we've got to place not only the walls but the decorations and things on them. So for example, we've got the sconces in 3 different layers. So we've got the biggest one for layer 3, I think that would be, and then we've got the layer 2 and layer 1. So we've got 3 sizes of each one here. So these are the key plates. Again, we've got the biggest, medium, and the smallest one. So 3 of them here. Then we've got a slightly different color variation, 3 of them here, and so on. So this goes through all of the objects that are available. So all these are, of course, these are scratches on the wall. There's multiple things there. The mirrors for the champions, slime, writing, grates, you name it, they're all here. So this took a hell of a lot of work to put them in, but this will now give you some idea of how we can actually draw these graphics onto the dungeon, instead of having our simple text-based description of what's here. We would be able to use the same principles, but storing instead the images and their locations where to draw them. So that's what we'll be working on next. So I just wanted to show you all the data that we need to use. So here they are, they're all text files. So if I take, let's just say, let's take them all just to show you how much we've got to deal with, and we'll dump them all into Notepad++. So these are all the coordinates for the different layers, champions, doors, floors, the GUI, items, data. Monsters I haven't dealt with yet, they come later. Stairs, start. Well, as you can see, a lot of stuff in here. So we could, of course, read all these text files in as we did on the console-based one, but we were only using a couple of them then, so it wasn't too bad. But now that we've got to start drawing graphics, we've got one hell of a lot of data that we need to deal with. So it seemed to me the most sensible way of dealing with all this data, if I just minimize that, was instead of doing it in a separate text files, would to put it all in a database. So here's the database. We've got these tables in it for all the different items. So if we start with the champions, we've got 24 champions. We've got their ID, their name, and all the different statistics that those champions have. I won't go through all the tables, but it's just to kind of give you an idea. And then let's take the coordinates. So these are the coordinates that I was showing you earlier, where every single item has to have a coordinate. So we've got 638 coordinates of all the different objects, the pieces of wall, where we're going to put them. So these are just simple XY values. Then we've got the source rectangles. So this is where we take from the sprite sheets. So it's got the name of the sprite sheet and the name of the item or wall or whatever we want from that sprite sheet, and its X, Y, width and height, so we can obtain a rectangle from the source rectangles. Now, one thing I didn't mention, but it's kind of pretty obvious if we just flick back to this one, let's go to that one, is if this was the game that we were actually playing, we're going to be doing a lot of mouse clicking in the game. So we might want to click on the floor, or we might want to click, we don't actually click on a side wall, that's not accounted for, but you would certainly be able to click on a wall. So the wall might have a sconce here, or a button hidden down here, items on the floor. So we would need to know all of the kind of the click points, where the target areas that we want to click in. For example, we might want, if I just draw a square here, we might want a square there that represents the target area for a button or a sconce. So those have also got to be taken into account. So apart from the source rectangles, which there are a lot, 1300 of them, we've also got mouse targets. So let's find the mouse targets. So these are the target areas that when you're clicking in the dungeon, that it will be able to locate. So again, they've been divided up into sections depending on whether we're looking at the start screen or the GUI, the champions. Well, as you can see, a ton of stuff there. So let's get now on to showing or moving on to how do we actually create this database. So I think, given that we've already run for about 17-18 minutes, we'll stop at this point so that we can start with the how to construct the database from next episode.